Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins are at a crossroads, and that's not an exaggeration. This offseason has been anything but smooth for a franchise that was once riding high on hopes of becoming a perennial Super Bowl contender. Injuries have mounted, whispers of dysfunction behind the scenes are growing louder, and perhaps most notably, key players have been shown the door. First, it was Jalen Ramsey, then Jonnu Smith, both once viewed as core pieces of a team poised to dominate the AFC. Now, the attention has turned to Tyreek Hill, the electric all-pro receiver who once symbolized the Dolphins' win-now mentality. The fact that credible analysts like Christopher Knox are predicting Hill could be traded before the 2025 season begins is shaking the foundation of the franchise. It's not just a roster move. It's a potential philosophical shift. If Hill is moved, it would represent a dramatic pivot, one that suggests the Dolphins are beginning to recalibrate their identity. Let's not sugarcoat this. Trading Tyreek Hill would be a seismic event. He's not just a name on a depth chart. He's been the focal point of Miami's offense since arriving via blockbuster trade from Kansas City in 2022. In that time, he's racked up over 4,400 receiving yards and 26 touchdowns, earning 2 first-team All-Pro selections. His speed and explosiveness have redefined how defenses approach Miami, creating opportunities not just for himself, but for every offensive player on the field. Defenses are forced to double him or risk getting burned deep. But Hill is now 31, and while he's still among the fastest men in football, age is starting to creep in. There's also the reality of diminishing production. His 2024 numbers, 959 yards and 6 touchdowns, were a significant drop from the 1,799 yards and 13 scores he posted just a season prior. That's not just a slump, that's a red flag for a franchise with aspirations bigger than one player. Tyreek Hill's future in Miami isn't just about performance, though. It's also about attitude and commitment. After the 2024 season, Hill publicly admitted he wanted out of Miami, a statement that sent shockwaves through the fan base. Since then, his dedication to the team has been questioned. While some teammates have defended him, others have remained silent, and that silence can be deafening. For a player making over $30 million annually, that kind of uncertainty is not something a front office can ignore. Couple that with the salary cap implications, moving Hill would free up around $15 million, and you start to understand why analysts believe a trade could be imminent. This isn't a matter of if Hill still has talent. It's a matter of whether keeping him fits with the Dolphins' long-term goals. And increasingly, it looks like the answer to that question is no. The cap space angle is crucial. The Dolphins, like many teams chasing a title, have structured their roster around big contracts and star power. But the NFL isn't a fantasy league. You can't pay everyone top dollar and expect the locker room to stay balanced. With TUA TAGOVAILOA's looming contract situation, several young defenders due for extensions, and the need to reinforce a weakening offensive line, every dollar counts. Freeing up $15 million by trading Hill could be the key to addressing multiple holes on the roster. Yes, it would hurt in the short term, especially for a team trying to bounce back from an 8-9 season, but it might be the most pragmatic move available. The front office has to ask, does keeping Hill get us closer to a Super Bowl? Or is he now more valuable as a trade chip? Christopher Knox's assessment isn't coming out of nowhere. His argument is grounded in both analytics and business sense. He points out that Hill's value will only decrease with time, especially if 2025 turns into another good, not great season. Wide receivers don't typically age gracefully, especially ones whose games rely so heavily on speed and burst. Knox believes trading Hill now could net a solid return, possibly a high draft pick or two, and maybe even a young, cost-controlled player. It's not a bad haul for a 31-year-old receiver with an uncertain future, and it might be the smartest way to pivot toward a new era. The key is timing. Way too long, and Hill's value plummets. Move too early, and you risk sending the wrong message to a locker room still trying to buy into Mike McDaniel's vision. And speaking of Mike McDaniel, he finds himself in the hottest seat he's faced since taking over as head coach. The young, innovative offensive mind was hailed as a genius just 2 years ago, but the shine has worn off after back-to-back seasons of unmet expectations. His system, once lauded for creativity, now looks predictable at times. Injuries to TAGOVAILOA haven't helped, but that's part of the problem. The offense has become too dependent on both Tua's health and Hill's explosiveness. If either falters, the whole operation grinds to a halt. Trading Hill would remove one of those crutches. It would force McDaniel to innovate again, to adapt. That's a scary proposition, but it could also be the spark this coaching staff needs. In the NFL, complacency kills. Maybe shaking things up is exactly what McDaniel's offense needs. Now, let's consider the fans' perspective. Miami's fan base has been through a lot over the past 2 decades. Endless quarterback changes, rebuilding years, coaching carousels. Tyreek Hill gave them a reason to believe again. He brought swagger, speed, and star power back to Hard Rock Stadium. Trading him would undoubtedly cause an uproar, at least initially. Jerseys would be burned, tweets would fly, and the front office would face a PR nightmare. But fans are smart. They understand the business side of football. If the Dolphins can sell the trade as a move towards sustainability and long-term success, especially if it brings in key pieces or cap flexibility, the backlash might be short-lived. Ultimately, fans want to win, and if moving Hill helps the Dolphins get closer to that elusive Lombardi trophy, forgiveness will come quickly. The bigger question, though, is what this means for Tua Tagovailoa. The quarterback has had his fair share of critics, mostly centered around his durability and arm strength. But when healthy, he's shown he can be a top-tier quarterback. And much of that success has come thanks to Hill's presence. Losing Hill would be a massive blow to Tua, both statistically and psychologically. It would shift even more pressure onto his shoulders at a time when he's entering a contract year. Without Hill stretching defenses and creating space, Tua's margin for error shrinks. But it could also be a blessing in disguise. If Tua can elevate his play without Hill, it could cement his status as a franchise quarterback and silence his doubters. If not, the Dolphins might find themselves shopping for a new QB as well come 2026, and let's not ignore the trade market. There are plenty of contending teams out there that would love to add a receiver like Tyreek Hill. Think about teams like the New York Jets, Baltimore Ravens, or even the San Francisco 49ers. All squads with strong defenses, solid quarterback, play, and a need for one more offensive weapon to get over the hump. If Miami plays its cards right, it could spark a bidding war that drives Hill's value higher than expected. A first-round pick, maybe even a young corner or pass rusher in return. That's the kind of deal that could re-energize a franchise that's stuck in between competing and rebuilding. For general manager Chris Grier, the challenge is making sure any trade improves the team's future without completely sabotaging the present. It's a tightrope walk, but one that might be necessary. So what happens now? The preseason is just around the corner, and the clock is ticking. Hill's presence in training camp will be under a microscope. Every route, every interaction. With coaches, every comment to the media will be dissected for signs of discontent or detachment. If things get awkward, and they often do in situations like this, the Dolphins might have no choice but to pull the trigger. On the other hand, if Hill recommits and reminds everyone why he's still one of the league's most dangerous weapons, the pressure to keep him will mount. But make no mistake, this story isn't going away. It's not just about Tyreek Hill. It's about a franchise figuring out who they are, who they want to be, and whether one of the best receivers in football still fits that vision. Buckle up, Dolphins fans. This could get wild. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Is the Miami Dolphins franchise about to undergo a seismic shift? That's the burning question circulating across NFL circles this week, as whispers grow louder about a potential blockbuster deal involving quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. According to multiple sources close to the situation, the Dolphins may be open to trading their starting QB. And if that's true, it could reshape the AFC East overnight. Enter the Minnesota Vikings. Word on the street is that the Vikings have already sent a serious proposal to Miami's front office. And what's even more intriguing is that Tua himself is reportedly evaluating the move. This isn't just a throwaway rumor from an unreliable insider. It's gaining traction. And if everything checks out, Tua could be wearing purple and gold a lot sooner than anyone expected. It's the kind of move that could set off a domino effect across the league heading into the new season. Let's be clear, no official trade has gone through yet. But the pieces are lining up in a way that feels eerily calculated. The Dolphins have not publicly committed to Tua long term, and they notably declined to offer a contract extension this offseason. That in itself raised eyebrows, especially after the kind of numbers he put up last year. Tua led Miami to the playoffs and posted career highs in passing yards and completion percentage. Despite that, there's been an air of hesitation in the Dolphins building. Some believe head coach Mike McDaniel may be eyeing a more mobile quarterback to fit his evolving offensive scheme, while others suggest the team is reluctant to commit big money before seeing how this year plays out. With those factors in mind, it wouldn't be shocking if they quietly entertained offers, and if the Vikings came knocking with the right package, that might just be enough to tip the scales. From the Vikings' perspective, this move makes a lot of sense. After parting ways with Kirk Cousins, Minnesota is clearly in search of a new face for the franchise. Sure, they drafted J.J. McCarthy, but the rookie still needs time to develop. Rumors say head coach Kevin O'Connell wants a proven starter to lead a playoff-caliber roster now, not in 2 or 3 seasons. That's where Tua comes in. He's accurate, experienced, and still young enough to build a team around. More importantly, he's ready to win now. Sources indicate that the Vikings' offer includes multiple first-round picks, possibly a key defensive player, and perhaps even conditional draft swaps in future seasons. It's an aggressive package, one. That shows how serious Minnesota is about making a splash, and the idea of pairing Tua with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That's the kind of offensive firepower that could instantly change the balance of power in the NFC North. Tua's reaction to the situation is perhaps the most fascinating part of this story. He hasn't publicly commented, but insiders say he's intrigued by the opportunity to lead a team like Minnesota. While he's always spoken highly of his time in Miami, the relationship has had its ups and downs. From the Deshaun Watson rumors a few years back to questions about his durability, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. Now, with Miami dragging its feet on an extension, Tua might be looking at this as a fresh start. Minnesota offers stability, weapons, and a coach who reportedly values his style of play. If this is more than just smoke, if real conversations are happening behind the scenes, then it's entirely possible we could see Tua in a new jersey by the time preseason wraps up. And that would be one of the most shocking quarterback moves in recent memory, hands down. What's also worth mentioning is how the Dolphins are preparing behind the scenes. Multiple reports indicate that the front office has been quietly scouting quarterbacks across the league, including potential trade options and free agents. Some even believe that they might already have a replacement plan in mind. Possibly someone like Trey Lance or even Jacoby Brissett as a temporary bridge. It's all speculation for now, but these breadcrumbs suggest Miami is at least exploring its options. If they're willing to part ways with Tua, it would likely mean they're confident in a contingency plan. And that tells us the discussions with Minnesota are far more advanced than initially assumed. Whether this is a bold strategic move or a risky gamble remains to be seen, but one thing is clear, the Dolphins are no longer treating Tua as untouchable. And in the NFL, when that label is lifted, anything can happen. What makes this rumor even more compelling is the timing. We're just weeks away from the start of the regular season, and teams are finalizing rosters and depth charts. Trades of this magnitude usually happen earlier in the offseason, but this late-stage buzz suggests a sense of urgency from both parties. The Vikings want to capitalize on their current window, while the Dolphins may see this as a last chance to extract max value from Tua before his contract situation becomes even more complicated. Some analysts believe Miami fears another injury-shortened season could tank his trade value altogether. If that's the case, striking now, with his stock still relatively high, might be the most pragmatic move. Combine that with a Vikings aggressive offer, and we've got all the ingredients for a blockbuster. The league is watching closely, and if something goes down, it could send shockwaves through both conferences. Behind closed doors, players are starting to hear the chatter. 2. According to team sources, a few Dolphins veterans have noticed a shift in tone from Tua during recent practices. He's still putting in the work, still showing leadership, but there's a noticeable edge, like a guy who knows his future might lie elsewhere. Meanwhile, Vikings insiders say the front office has been unusually tight-lipped, avoiding media questions about their quarterback plans. That kind of radio silence often means something's brewing. League insiders are drawing parallels to Passy. Late summer quarterback trades. Think Sam Bradford to the Vikings in 2016 or Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers. Moves that seemed unthinkable until they happened. If this deal goes through, it could change the trajectory of both franchises. Miami would have to pivot quickly, and Minnesota would suddenly look like a legitimate NFC contender. It's high-stakes poker, and the cards are being dealt as we speak. Even from a fan perspective, this potential trade is divisive. Dolphins fans are split. Some believe Tua deserves a long-term commitment, while others worry he's not durable enough to build around. His concussion history remains a serious concern. On the flip side, Vikings fans are buzzing at the thought of getting a playoff-tested quarterback in his prime. Sure, they drafted McCarthy, but there's no guarantee he's ready. Adding Tua to an offense with Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, that's a dream scenario. Plus, O'Connell's offense is built around quick reads and timing routes, a perfect fit for Tua's strengths. Still, the risk is undeniable. If Miami lets Tua walk and doesn't have a reliable plan B, it could backfire spectacularly. For Minnesota, giving up premium draft capital for a quarterback with injury concerns is always a gamble. But as the saying goes, no guts, no glory, and both teams seem ready to roll the dice. From a business standpoint, the trade also makes financial sense, at least in the short term. Tua is still on his rookie deal, which gives the Vikings flexibility to spend elsewhere before a potential extension. For Miami, moving on from Tua before an expensive contract kicks in could free up cap space to pursue a younger, cheaper option or make a splash in free agency. The NFL is a brutal business, and sometimes teams have to make cold, calculated decisions. This feels like one of those moments. There's also the media angle. If Tua gets traded, it will dominate headlines for weeks. Every analyst, every podcast, every YouTube channel, we'll all be dissecting the move from every angle. It'll be the biggest storyline heading into week 1, and both franchises know that. In a league where attention matters, a high-profile quarterback trade doesn't just shake up the standings, it drives the narrative. So where does that leave us? Right now, in a state of limbo, but with momentum clearly building toward something big. The Dolphins haven't shut down the trade talk, and the Vikings are circling like sharks. Tua is at the center of it all, weighing the pros and cons of a potential life-altering decision. Stay with a team that drafted him, or start fresh with a hungry NFC squad ready to win now. It's not just a football decision, it's a career-defining choice. And in true NFL fashion, the answer might come down to one phone call, one deal, one push across the finish line. If and when it happens, it'll be the kind of moment we'll talk about for years. Until then, keep your eyes on your notifications, because this story is moving fast. Tua to the Vikings? It's not official yet, but don't be surprised if it becomes the next NFL headline of the decade. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.